to Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. More training camp battles to talk about. And this time, along the defensive line, where there's going to be some unique opportunities for young players to get out there and prove that they deserve not only to be on this football team, but potentially starting as well. And the 49ers had to make a huge investment this offseason to rebuild this 49ers defensive line. And I know Robert Saleh and the San Francisco 49ers, especially John Lynch, has used recalibrate. But when you look at especially the interior portion of this defensive line, the 49ers had to go a long ways to make sure that they had players that were going to be able to be consistent and be able to produce for this 49ers 2025 football team. Because all you have to do is go back to 2024, and you can see a unit that was completely inconsistent. And that unit had been remade from the year before, because in 2023, the 49ers had a pretty good unit up front. They had Eric Armstead, and Armstead was, the blueprint. He was the guy that fit everything the 49ers wanted to do. He could stop the run. He could get after the passer. He was a complete defensive tackle. And then they had Javon Hargrave. And Hargrave, another guy, super athletic, able to get after the quarterback. Penetration, get to the quarterback was the name of the game for the 49ers defense. But then when you look at what they did last year, Eric Armstead didn't want to reshape his contract. So the 49ers moved on from Armstead. They went ahead and allowed him to go move on. He went to Jacksonville. And with that came a new addition in Malik Collins. And the 49ers went out and got Malik Collins. They went out and got Jordan Elliott, who had been a starting defensive tackle for Cleveland Browns. Malik Collins traded a 7th-round pick to get him from the Houston Texans. So defensive line remade. And they were still hopeful that some of their young guys, like Kalia Davis, was going to step up and become a big-time player. And he showed promise last preseason. So it looked like a defensive line that had pivoted, but yet still was going to be formidable. Unfortunately for the 49ers, it just didn't materialize. All the defensive tackles they added, they couldn't stop the run consistently, except for Evan Anderson. And Evan Anderson, an undrafted free agent rookie, was the one bright spot when it came to stopping the run consistently. His problem, he can't rush the passer, or at least he couldn't last year. I don't know how much he'll develop this year. I think there's an opportunity for that, and I think Chris Kasarik has kind of said he wants him to reshape his body because I think they want him to be a little bit more mobile, a little bit more athletic, but they don't want him to lose that strength, that ability to anchor against double teams, which made him extremely valuable to the 49ers 2024 team and could make him extremely valuable to the 2025 team. Because stopping the run is the name of the game in San Francisco. They want to stop the run more than anything else. And it's easy to see that by their draft picks. When you just look at what they did in round 1 with Mikael Williams, one of the best run-stopping defensive ends, and you could say the best run-stopping edge in the entire draft. You look at Alfred Collins, the big defensive tackle. He is a run stopper. That was his role at Texas, was stopping the run. Two-gapping, keeping control of the offensive players, disengaging with shedding that block, and getting to the ball carrier and making a tackle. That's what he did. CJ West, who they got in the 4th round, out of Indiana, same exact thing, a run stopper. Now, different build. Alfred Collins, 6'6", CJ West, 6'1", but CJ West, another guy that holds up well against the run, takes on double teams. If you made the statement that the 49ers got 3 of the top 4 defensive linemen in stopping the run in this draft, I don't think there's going to be an argument from pretty much any of the evaluators around the league. Like, that's how good the belief is that these guys are. So the 49ers made an investment to change the game, and that is a huge investment over what they had in the past, where they were leaning more into the pass rushers, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins. Like, that's what those guys did. Now, the 49ers defense this year has 2 really young guys that are going to have to make an impact with Collins and with CJ West, but also young guys like Evan Anderson, a guy who's still looking to do something in Kalia Davis. There is a lot that still has to happen. But we're going to talk about the ins and outs of the battle because it's interesting with defensive line, especially, and especially defensive tackle, that there's actually two positions here. I know a lot of people like to lump it together, but there is your one tech type player who's a more of a plug defender, a run stopper, and there's a three tech player who's a little bit more aggressive, likes to win with a penetration, with aggressive plays in the backfield. The 49ers have to fill both roles, and you can't have too many of the same player, or you lose in one element. But the 49ers have also planned for that because they've added some defensive ends. So this is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about all the battles. CJ West has got a huge battle on his hands. Evan Anderson has a huge battle on his hands. It's going to be a fun conversation. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, and you feel like I deserve it, give it a 5-star rating. I really appreciate it. And of course, if you are going to bet with Bet Online. BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing and football season around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC, and tennis, and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, head on over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Bet online, the game starts here. So all you have to do is look at the San Francisco 49ers defensive line roster to see that there are going to be some unique competitions. And it's across the board. There's a lot of positions for the 49ers where there is a starter in waiting. There's a incumbent that you know is going to start at the position. And then there are positions where you don't have an incumbent. And I think the 49ers are going to have a open competition across the board when it comes to defensive line. I do think that they're going to have leanings, and a lot of that times they lean towards a veteran because a veteran understands the system already. And I get it. Robert Saleh is a new defensive coordinator, and he's coming in with his own thoughts and beliefs. But he's also coming in running a similar defense to what the 49ers have done the entire time when it comes schematically and thought process. But also, Chris Kasarik, who runs the defensive line, who's the defensive line coach, he isn't really changing up what's expected of this defensive line. They have been the same since he got here back in 2019. Is they understand that it's about the wide nine, about getting pressure off the edge, but also about defensive tackles that can create penetration by getting vertical upfield and causing havoc in the backfield. And then when it comes time and they get double teamed, they've got to be able to hold their ground through good technique and be able to keep those offensive linemen from being able to combo block, come off that double team and get to the linebackers, keep Fred Warner clean, keep this young linebacker crew clean. That's how you're going to be able to win. So there are some certain things that you have to do. Now, understanding how these training camp battles are going to go also means understanding what the positions of defensive tackle are, right? I talked about your three tech. That is lining up outside shade of the guard. And when you line up out there, they want penetration. They want somebody that's going to wreak havoc in the backfield and someone that's going to make plays there. I think sometimes they would love more consistency instead of just splash plays. But those splash plays can end drives. You get a big play on first down that results in a 2-yard loss, and it's 2nd and 12, and you put in offense against the 8-ball, behind the 8-ball. Now, do they run on 2nd down and force 3rd and 10? Do they go ahead and try to throw and get half of those yards back? It can put an offense in a little bit of a predicament with a early down loss. So that is why the 49ers want that guy that can get vertical and wreak havoc in the backfield. A havoc player is exactly what they're looking for. Now, the other side of the coin is the one tech, who will play one tech, he'll play 2I, and these are all alignments on how they line up on offensive linemen. And what happens is you get this guy, and his expectation is to take on blockers and stop the run. This is where you get your more bigger, physical guys who can hold up against the run. But when you're looking at who plays these types of positions, the one tech has usually been guys like DJ Jones. That's why you hear Chris Kasarik relate a lot of players to DJ Jones, because he's kind of a prototype player. The 49ers like to play that one tech 2-eye position. And why is he a prototype? Well, he's a guy that not only was able to stop the run, but also could get vertical and cause penetration, right? We've seen him have a big sack against Russell Wilson when he just blows up the center, playing a zero tech. He just blew him up, went and got straight to Russ, play over. That athletic ability to be able to get in the backfield and penetrate, combined with lateral quickness to be able to move, is something that's hard to find for interior defensive linemen that are going to be that quick, that fast, that strong, still be able to hold up against the double team. So that's kind of the player you're looking for. Now, last year, the 49ers had a couple of guys playing that position. They would use Jordan Elliott sometimes. They were hoping Kalia Davis was going to be that guy, but he suffered an injury. And so they've consistently looked for a one tech, and it's no different than what happened in this draft for the 49ers, where they put an emphasis on it. In fact, when the 49ers drafted Alfred Collins in round 2, I did not think CJ West was still going to be on the list, because I thought that, okay, we got the one tech, they're going to go get a 3 tech. Because when you look at the roster, the way it's constituted, Jordan Elliott could be a 3 tech, but he also could be a 1 tech. He's kind of a tweener. He's a guy that's more vertical penetration, but it's more hit and miss. It's not as consistent. Then the next 3 tech is like a guy like Kevin Givens. So I thought, yeah, they're going to go get another guy that could penetrate, that could get in the backfield, and then can create some problems. So there was lots of guys in the draft, but they decided to go CJ West. I think that also tells us a lot about CJ West, but also Alfred Collins. So let's kind of lay the groundwork for this. We have several players that are going to be playing defensive line for the 49ers. You have Jordan Elliott of the veterans, Kevin Givens, he's a veteran. Kalia Davis is actually the next guy who's been there for a while. Then you have young guys. You have Evan Anderson, he's going into year 2. But you also have drafted Alfred Collins, you drafted CJ West, and you have undrafted free agent Sebastian Valdez. So it's a mixture of young guys and veterans. Now, one of the things that's making it a little bit more complicated for the 49ers, because I do believe Alfred Collins is in the mix to start. I'm not one that believes the way that some do, that the 49ers need to start both rookie defensive tackles day one. I think that you go out there and you let them prove it. If they prove that they are the 2 best right off the bat, then yeah, start them. But I think if you feel like you're not going to have both of them be at the level that you want, don't force it. Don't just give them reps to give them reps. Like, that's a bad idea, because there is such a thing as bad reps in game situations. In practice, you get a bad rep, you learn from it. In a game situation, it hurts your football team, right? You get a bad rep and you're like, oh, well, they're learning. Yeah, but that affected Fred Warner, because now, your rookie, and I don't want to put a name on who it was, got blown up. And next thing you know, Fred Warner's got an offensive tackle all over him, or an offensive guard all over him. And it's because of the weaknesses up front. So it works together, and those things, it's hard to learn on the fly. It's better to have the best player there. If they're the best player, then play them. But it's more complicated because of Alfred Collins' situation. And I'm not talking about his injury. I'm talking about with his contract. The 49ers rookies are supposed to be reporting on, what is it, a little over a week away? And Alfred Collins is still not under contract. Now, it's not because of just Alfred Collins, but also because of the 49ers and because of the league. Only 2 second-round picks have signed their contracts, Jaden Higgins and Carson Schwetzinger, who were the first 2 picks of the second round, and they got fully guaranteed contracts. That's the first time that this has happened in NFL history. Now, every other NFL team is sitting back and saying, we do not want to fully guarantee second-round contracts. So it's got to be which player is going to drop first. One of these teams ahead of the 49ers are hoping that one of those players is going to decide to not accept a fully guaranteed contract. If that happens, then all the dominoes will fall into place, and they'll get Alfred Collins under contract, because really all the money and everything's pretty much laid out. We know he's going to get a $4.1 million signing bonus. We know it. We just don't know how much of the money is going to be guaranteed, and that's what we're waiting on. Now, that could throw a big wrench into the 49ers' plans, because I do believe that Alfred Collins has the best opportunity to start along the defensive line for the San Francisco 49ers, but he could get put behind the eight ball. If you are not out there, and it doesn't have to be the rookie portion of training camp where they're going through conditioning, making sure they're healthy, right? Last year, Isaac Guerrero suffered a hamstring injury because they were out there working, trying to make sure these guys are ready when you get into training camp so you don't suffer injuries. They're getting them acclimated. If Alfred Collins isn't ready for that, I'm not freaking out. But as we go into training camp, if he starts missing practices, I think that's just going to hurt his opportunity to start. And I know Alfred Collins is going to be a monster for the 49ers. 6'6", over 330 pounds, and he runs a 4.95 40. That is ridiculous athleticism. He's got ridiculous length with his arms. Everything about Alfred Collins screams starting defensive tackle. But if you are not out there getting reps in practice and proving that you are a starter, I just don't think you can start. And so I do believe that there is a certain point in training camp, and I'm guessing it's probably when they get into pads, that Alfred Collins needs to be able and ready to be on the field. I do believe that the injury is going to be behind him, but I do not know about this contract situation. I don't know how long an Alfred Collins waits. I don't know how long the other 10 guys or 11 guys in front of Alfred Collins wait to decide if they're going to get fully guaranteed contracts. And I have no problem with these players doing what they're doing, because you have to make sure you take care of yourself, and getting a fully guaranteed contract is huge, right? That sets up your family a little bit different than you fizzling out in a couple years and not getting all that money, and the money that's not guaranteed. So I understand it, but I do think that could hurt him. And I think that he's in a competition with guys right behind him to potentially start. Now, who are those guys? Because I think Alfred Collins is set to play the one tech. I think that early on, it makes sense to play him in a role that was very similar to what he did at Texas, which is a big two-gap, run-stopping defensive tackle who has a little bit more freedom now. He did not have freedom at Texas to consistently penetrate, get in the backfield, and make plays or rush the passer. He'll have more of that at Chris Kacerik's defensive line wide nine scheme, going along with what Robert Saleh does. So I think he's in the competition for that position at one tech. Now, who is competing with him at one tech for that starting job? Well, it's got to be CJ West. That's one of the most interesting things, is West is a one tech as well. He is built in the mold of DJ Jones, right? 6'1". With West, he's about 317. DJ Jones went closer to 330, but they both can move laterally, good quickness. Got enough length to be able to win, low center of gravity, right? These guys are kind of built similar. And I think that CJ West is actually going to get reps behind Alfred Collins initially. Now, I think that they're going to do some fun things with Collins. I think he's going to light up and play some three tech. I think they're going to take some looks at CJ West playing some three tech as well, and see what his versatility is, because he's also hyper athletic. So I think that there's a chance there. But when you look at the one tech position, if you just looked at it purely on how these guys played in college, how they were drafted, you could easily say Alfred Collins is the leader in the clubhouse to be your starting one tech when the 49ers head to Seattle for week 1. CJ West would be right behind him in the second spot, competing with Evan Anderson. Because the one thing about Alfred Collins is, I do believe he's got the versatility to play one tech and to play three tech. CJ West might have the versatility. I say might because his athleticism has proven he can be a disruptor. He can be a penetrator. He can get in the backfield and create some issues. But Evan Anderson has yet to prove that. So Evan Anderson's the first guy that I'm talking about that doesn't have that versatility. He doesn't have the versatility to potentially go and play a three tech role. He's not fast enough. He's not athletic enough. He doesn't have enough lateral quickness. He doesn't penetrate. He is a guy that doesn't get past the line of scrimmage. When you watch Evan Anderson, minus him, it's an occasional, he'll get into the backfield, but for the most part, he is at the line of scrimmage. And that's not a bad characteristic. When you have guys that stop the run, you don't want them to get moved off the line of scrimmage. But I think they're hoping he's going to develop to where he can be a penetrator sometimes, right? We talk about those Alfred Collins and CJ West. It's like, yeah, but they have upside, right? West is a guy that can go get sacks. Alfred Collins wasn't using that role, but there's a belief that he could be that guy. With Evan Anderson, I don't think that there is that thought process right now that he could be that guy. Not unless he can get his weight. And I got to give him credit. He was really, really like, I think he was over 360 at one point in his college career. And he got it down to like 330 last year in the whole process. And now they want him to be about CJ West weight. That's one of the interesting things. Him and CJ West, their build as far as height is very similar. And I think they want their weight to be very similar, right around 315 to 320, able to move laterally, because lateral quickness not only helps you generate pressure when talking about pass rush, because you can get past guards who are moved inside because they're less athletic than offensive tackles, but also it allows you to get down the line of scrimmage. One of the things that's very important for this defensive lineman is to be able to get down the line of scrimmage when you're playing zone schemes. And the 49ers are going to face so many zone schemes just in their own division. You got a Kubiak now in Seattle, zone scheme, going to look very familiar to the 49ers. Sean McVay is zone scheme. That's going to be there as well. So you've got guys who are going to be running zone schemes and Kyle Shanahan zone schemes within this division. And you have to have guys that can laterally move down the line of scrimmage. That is one thing Anderson was maybe a step slow on last year. I think if you watch the film, you see him a lot of times trailing, not quite getting there. It's not for lack of hustle. I will give him that. Not for lack of hustle. But he's just not quite getting there. With Collins and West, you expect him to get there. Now, what's interesting is I've been talking about this one tech, and I think that even when you look at Kalia Davis, he was kind of, if you remember, the conversations were, this guy is very much a DJ Jones type of player. And they have been talking about him playing one tech as well throughout this process. I think he's going to go through a position change, and I think they're going to try to play him as a penetrating three tech. And so I kind of am going to put him in that mold in that competition. So one thing to watch during this whole thing is going to be Alfred Collins first when we're talking about one tech and when he gets on the field. If he does not get on the field initially, expect the 49ers to give opportunities to Evan Anderson, CJ West, and even to see what a Jordan Elliott could do at one tech. I don't think they want Jordan Elliott to play one tech anymore. I think they want to play him at three tech, and I think that's why they drafted the way they drafted. I think they like the versatility of him and Alfred Collins being able to switch, CJ West having that versatility as well, and not having guys that are completely pigeonholed to one position, even though there are expectations that are different. I think they'd love to have Armstead type guys, right? Guys that can play both. He can play one tech and three tech, but those guys don't just come around all the time. Why they're happy about Alfred Collins. But I didn't talk about Jordan Elliott. And I know if you've been on the channel for a while, you know that I believe Jordan Elliott is going to start at three tech. I just do. I think that initially, because of the learning curve for Alfred Collins, that I think that he's going to start at one tech, and I think that's the best situation for him. And then I think Jordan Elliott's going to start at three tech because he is a penetrator. He finished in the top 10 last year when it came to creating negative plays. There wasn't a lot of them, but defensive tackles and creating negative plays, you don't see that very often. They struggle a little bit because they're not as quick, they're not as big, they're not as physical. When especially when we're talking about a penetrator, right? They're not going to have the physical nature to be quick and have the strength and everything. So getting that complete guy is tough. But I think when you look at Elliott, I think he's going to come in with that veteran leadership. Shanahan's talked about the fact that they liked him a lot and what he did last year. They chose him over Malik Collins, right? There was two really big decisions for the 49ers when it came to interior defensive line. So they had Malik Collins for 2 years. They had Jordan Elliott for 2 years. They decided that they were going to keep Jordan Elliott. Younger, yes. But also, I think he's a little bit of a different player, so they decided to go that way. He is a little bit more stout when it comes to stopping the run. I think they see that ability. But then on the outside as well, they decided to keep Yetur Gross-Matos, younger, yes, over Leonard Floyd, but once again, a little bit more stout when it comes to the run game. So something that's interesting when you look at some of the decisions that they made. Now, Kevin Givens is going to be a three tech. That's all he can do. Right, we talked about Evan Anderson. He's pretty much pigeonholed to that one tech. Well, Kevin Givens is completely pigeonholed to the three tech. And so I think that yes, he could be a designated pass rusher. I could do that. But I think the 49ers have also spent a lot of draft capital. They traded for Bryce Huff. They added Mikael Williams in the draft. I think they've also invested in guys who can move inside the pass rush. So I'm not sure that there's an expectation that they have to have a defensive tackle that can produce pass rush from the inside on third downs. Now, early downs, right? Kevin Givens can give you some of that. But I think the 49ers would rather stop the run on early downs and give up a little bit when it comes to pass rush on first and second than they would having a Kevin Givens in there. He's going to have to prove that he can consistently stop the run, and that hasn't been his forte at his time in San Francisco. He's been admirable. He competes. He does have good technique, but he's undersized. He gives up weight, and a lot of times you'll see him on film. He's got his feet in the ground, and they're just pushing him, and he's literally just being, slid all the way back into the linebacker. So Givens is kind of in a mix where he's in a competition, and I think he's in a competition with a guy that's, in Kalia Davis. And Kalia Davis was so fun to watch last year in the preseason game, the first preseason. And then he got hurt, and he never looked the same again. You got like one or two plays during the season. And I think the 49ers have, I wouldn't say given up on Kalia Davis, but I definitely think they have tempered expectations on what he could possibly be for this football team. I think they're looking at him now, and they're thinking to themselves, he's going to have to go out there and prove it, and we're expecting zero from him. Where if he comes out, he shows up, and he shows out like he's capable of doing, he's got a chance to make this team. He could beat out Kevin Givens to make this football team if he goes out and he displays the abilities that he has. This dude is hyper athletic. He's very strong, and he's got the ability to move laterally quickly. He's also a penetrator. So he's in a competition with Kevin Givens. This is going to be one of the key competitions to decide if Kevin Givens makes this team or Kalia Davis makes this team. I don't think both make this roster. I think that one of them is going to be gone, whether they end up on the 49ers practice squad or not. This competition is one of those that you're either on the team or you're off the team. Because when you look at the competitions at One Tech and you look at Evan Anderson and you look at CJ West and Alfred Collins, two of those three guys have versatility. And I think that that is one thing that helps them. I think when you look at Kevin Givens and Kalia Davis, I think they're going to decide that Davis doesn't have versatility to play One Tech anymore. And so with that being said, he's going to have to compete with Kevin Givens for that role. So this is going to be an interesting battle when talking defensive line. And I haven't even talked about Sebastian Valdez, who's a very interesting undrafted free agent out of Washington. And he didn't just play at Washington the whole time. He had to work his way up. But just over 300 pounds and one of the strongest dudes that's going to be on the 49ers roster. And that's pound for pound. Doesn't matter what position. This dude is freakishly strong. My questions for Sebastian Valdez are going to be, how quickly can he pick up Chris Kosarek's get off the ball quickly? So Valdez, when I watched him on film from Washington, is a little bit slow when it comes to that get off. It's not elite. It's not fantastic. It's pretty good, but it's got to get a lot better. If he gets better getting off the ball with his strength and he's got pretty good hands as well, heavy hands to be able to create a little bit of separation with him in the offensive line, I think he could compete at 3-Tech. And then you would have a logjam. Now, I do believe Sebastian Valdez is on the outside looking in. I think that he's going to have a hard time making this football team because the realistic point of view for this is that the 49ers likely will keep 5 interior defensive linemen. And I think when you look at the roster, we know Alfred Collins is going to be on this team. You know CJ West is going to be on this team. I think it's very likely Jordan Elliott's going to be on this team because I do believe he is going to start at defensive tackle to start the season. I'm not saying he's going to start the whole season. I'm saying when they line up in Seattle, barring injury, Jordan Elliott's going to be one of those starting defensive tackles for the 49ers. I think that's how they feel about him. So with those 3 guys set, you have a competition between the rest. That means Kevin Givens, Kalia Davis, Evan Anderson, Sebastian Valdez. Those 4 guys are competing for 2 spots. I think Evan Anderson has a really good shot to make this football team. I think what's interesting is going to be, because they have West and Alfred Collins, A lot of the way he's going to make this team is if one of them shows the versatility to be able to play three tech. If both of them are going to be just one techs this season, that is going to hurt Evan Anderson's chances of making this team. Because you have to have guys who can play both positions. If Alfred Collins shows he can play both, that helps Evan Anderson immensely. Because then there's times you can play Alfred Collins at 3 and you can play CJ West at 1 and his backup could be Evan Anderson. That is what helps these guys get on the field, is that versatility. So Evan Anderson is going to have to go show up and show out. And he's going to have to show improvement from last year. But also, I think he has to have, because of position makeup, one of these guys step up. And then I think when you're looking at the 3 tech, it's coming down to Kalia Davis and it's coming down to Kevin Givens. One of them is on this team and one of them is not. And I don't think Sebastian Valdez is going to make this team. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he comes in there and wrecks shop, tears it up, lights it up, and we're talking about a stud player because, we haven't got great production out of Kevin Givens or out of Kalia Davis over the last couple of years. Givens has been hit and miss. He is a guy that can create penetration in the backfield, but that's going to be fun. So we have interesting competitions on the interior defensive line. I think that Evan Anderson's a little bit more of a competition than people think. Do I believe Evan Anderson is going to start? No, I do not. I think Evan Anderson's only chance to start at defensive line, Alfred Collins has an extended holdout, and CJ West is struggling to pick up the position. I don't think that that's the case. I think that when you look at CJ West and Alfred Collins, I think they are better players than Evan Anderson. How quickly are they going to adjust to the NFL game and Chris Kaceric's scheme up front? That is a bigger question. But I do believe at some point they will jump Evan Anderson on the depth chart. It might be day one. Alfred Collins might be ahead of Evan Anderson day one. And I've said this before. I like when young players are able to watch a rep and do a rep. That's usually the way to go. But I think on the defensive line, especially with practices, they're going to look to get Alfred Collins and CJ West a part of this rotation early. And at some point, their hope is those two guys are going to start together. That's why I believe that they believe Alfred Collins and CJ West have the versatility to play both. They prove it. Evan Anderson's a shoo-in to make this football team. But there's a lot to be decided out there at training camp. I'm super excited about it. Rookies are going to be reporting in just over a week. I think it's a week away. Just be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then the training camp battles start. And once training camp goes full go and they get into pads, that's when it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these guys on the inside. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about, these training camp battles and who's going to win the battles in your opinion. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. And do you think Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis should be 3 techs or should they be 1 techs? I'm also curious about that because if they're 1 techs, 49ers have like 5 1 techs and only 1 real 3 tech. Well, actually 2 if you count Sebastian Valdez. So it's an interesting predicament for the 49ers. Hopefully Alfred Collins is going to get under contract here pretty soon. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.